All right, everybody, we are live with congressional candidate for Ohio's 14th district, Maria Jukic. She is running in a three-way primary. You're going to see that those videos come out all together against her competitors. And if she gets past the primary, she'll be going up against incumbent Republican David Joyce. Maria, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to do this in the middle of a Thursday, but I think it's very important for people to hear, clear answers about what's going on in the world, some different policy ideas that you have, and meet you and just get to know you a little bit. So we'll start from the very beginning. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Thank you. So I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Ohio. I spent 24 years in healthcare administration at Cleveland Clinic, working marketing and public relations at Euclid Hospital first, and then the last 17 years, I was running the arts and medicine program at Cleveland Clinic. I also ran for and was elected and served 4 years on Euclid City Council. I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Notre Dame in American Studies. Then at age 35, I went back to school and I got my law degree at Cleveland State College of Law. And then a few years ago, after my daughter went to college and I was an empty nester, I got my master's in theology and religious studies at John Carroll. So I was born and raised in Cleveland on the northeast side in North Collinwood. Some of you might remember Euclid Beach Park that was in my neighborhood, but that closed right around when I was born. Others might know the Beachland Ballroom or the Waterloo Arts District or East 185th Street. Those were my stomping grounds growing up. I grew up in an immigrant working class family. My mom was in the United Auto Workers and she worked at GM in the Fisher Body plant in Euclid, sewing car seats for Cadillacs. My dad was a draftsman who helped design X-ray and MRI machines. I've lived in Euclid now for about 25 years, except for a short stint where my daughter and I moved and lived in Willoughby Hills in Lake County for a little while she was in high school. So that's kind of a brief overview.
Excellent, excellent. You said something that's interesting there. We already have 20 people watching through the different channels, so welcome to everybody. If anybody is on one of the live streams and sees a chat box and you want to ask questions in the chat box, please feel free to put it in there. I will pass it on to Maria. Maria, you said something that we're just going to jump straight into the questions with. You said you had religious studies. Can you tell me about your religious studies and how that might influence your time in Congress? And then can you touch on the question that we have, I think, from Linda about the separation of church and state?
Sure. The first thing I want to say is that the separation of church and state in the United States of America is absolute. We should not even be talking about whether there is a separation of church and state. The founders created our country in that way, and that's the way it should be. So I grew up in Catholic Croatian family, and most of my education, as you can see, was in Catholic colleges, universities. So that's my worldview. That's where I come from. The reason I got the master's in theology and religious studies is because I'm very interested in all religions, in world religions and how they're similar and how they're different, and just to have a better understanding operating in the world, especially potentially in public office, to understand the vast type of religions and religious practices. And it also given me a real respect and tolerance for religious diversity and interreligious dialogue.
And so how is that going to influence you as a congressperson? Yes. Oh, two questions here. So you have this diverse background about religion. You said like, hey, I want to understand like everything. And then, hey, but how is that going to apply if, again, you said there's a separation of church and state? Why would you bring in religious understanding to your job if that is a question? And then the second thing is, what does separation of church and state mean? You said that it's absolute. We shouldn't even be talking about this. But again, if your background and you grew up, like my dad's a pastor, you grow up with a lot of religious influence in your house, that cannot not be out of my personality in some way, shape, or form. You studied religious studies. That cannot be out of your intellect or your background in any way, shape, or form. So an absolute separation is, I need you to define that.
So our government cannot choose one religion over any other. It's pretty much neutral in terms of religion. Some of the influences of the founding fathers, they all had their own influences, varying degrees of religious belief. And that's what I mean, that there cannot be a religion that is favored in our country, and there cannot be a religion that is not favored. It is neutral. For me, everyone has a circle and environment in which they grew up. And mine was an immigrant family, middle-class neighborhood, Croatian community, and also with this, religious cultural milieu, so to speak. What I have found and discovered through my education is that the social justice tenets of the Catholic tradition are very strong in me. And what those really are, some of them are the value and dignity of every person, care for the earth and the environment, the dignity of work and workers, respect for migrants, working together for the common good, and just war theory. So that's the influences, the type of influence, since you were very specific. Those are the things that I carry with me most.
You said, thank you for that, by the way. You said dignity of work, and that's something that I've been, thinking about. I wrote an article months ago about it because it's been something that I've been really trying to square my own circles with. Sherrod Brown ran on it. He's still gonna probably run on dignity of work. And I over the summer I went over to Dearborn, Michigan, to the Ford F-150 plant, and I'm trying to define what dignity means when it comes to work. Because what I saw, and I'm just framing this for you, from my opinion, is I saw I went there and I saw a worker taking some kind of like electric box and putting it in the back of a F-150, taking another one, putting back in the F-150. He's wearing headphones. His phone's allowed on the floor. He's allowed to text and search, Instagram. Meanwhile, doing his job, he listened to a podcast. I think he actually took a phone call. Don't know who he took the phone call from. And I'm thinking to myself this whole time is that a robot definitely could do this job, right? And I know that the UAW, which you said that your father was a part of, or you've come from a
My
UAW
mom.
family. Your mom,
Mm-hmm.
okay, your mom was part of, and you come from a UAW family. They fight for the workers against automating certain jobs. But if you're a worker and you can see that, hey, I'm doing a job that can be automated, does that give you dignity? Does it give you dignity to show up to know that your job is only being held onto by, say, a collective bargaining? And I guess that's what I was thinking, and I don't know the answer to that, and that's why I'm asking candidates. What do you think of dignity of work? What does it mean to you? And what do you think of maybe that such a situation, or those kind of like automation or AI job taking over in the future, and how does that bring people dignity to know that's like right over the horizon?
You bring up a good point that you witnessed something and it made you think about the future. So I don't have an answer to that particular, experience. But in terms of dignity of work, there's dignity in using your skills and gifts and talents to do something productive in the world and in society to support yourself and your family. We hear a lot about people who retire, who suddenly feel like, what do I do? Where do I belong? And a lot of them go back to work or do something productive in that way. So I think the dignity of work is participating in society and being able to provide for yourself and your family. The dignity of the actual type of work, I haven't thought that much about that in terms of automation and what's AI and whether it'll take the job from the person at the plant you're talking about. So I think it's less about what exactly the person is doing and the fact that they are contributing to this society and to themselves and to their families.
Everyone, I'm talking to Maria Jukic, who is running for U.S. Congress in Ohio-14 District. Again, if you're watching this live and you want to leave some comments into the live chat, please do so. And if you want to follow along with her website, if she inspires you by any way, I bet you can go there and make a donation or volunteer or just send her an email to say what's up. And you can see the email address right down there at the below of your screen. Moving on. No, I appreciate you saying that. About and that's a really good way to put it, is like dignity is just being productive. It's just going to do something. It's can I do something, and am I respected for doing the thing? You actually gave me something to think about. Even if that a automation or an AI could do it better, that's irrelevant of if it's dignity or not for the person and how they feel about doing work. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, like I said, I didn't think too much about that, so I don't want to, misspeak. And the whole AI and taking jobs, especially from manufacturing and other industries, it's really scary for people. Like from white collar to blue collar to nurses to bakers, it's really terrifying what might happen with AI and our jobs. So I think it's up to us, especially those of us who want to help make policy and represent people, to work hard on making sure there are parameters around respecting, again, the dignity of the human person and their work as we come up against these AI realities. I just talked to someone last night, and she said so much has changed even in the last year in AI. And I think we can all agree on that it's moving exponentially in a way that we're not quite ready for. So there's a lot of work to be done around that. And I know we're going to talk about that in a second also. So in terms of being replaced by AI and how that relates to dignity of work, I would really just say that contributing to society and helping support your family, I believe, gives individuals a sense of purpose and satisfaction and pride.
I guess we could just go to AI governance and AI and governance right now. Those questions. This is I don't even know if it's an elephant in the room. I think it's something bigger than an elephant, but a blue whale, something real big in the living room. But AI is going to, or can, or has the potential to touch every aspect of the job market and people's lives. It already has. It's replacing search. It's helping read and write and summarize and research and education, and it's already there. We're talking about videos, and honestly, half the time I'm on social media, I don't know if I'm watching a real news story or if somebody just made an AI prompt off of some kind of video. And it's starting to get me, and I'm pretty heavy into tech. So let's just talk about that. If you're asking for a job that will be a vote on regulation, it will be a vote on maybe UBI, universal basic income, something Andrew Yang proposed almost a decade ago. It will be a vote on data centers. It will be a vote on our power grid. It will be a vote on who can use what. It will be a vote on these tools that are being made to be used in war, to be used in business, to be used in jobs. And if those, so you will have that vote and that voice in the room of 435. What are your thoughts on AI? How do you think it should be regulated? Should it be regulated? Or is this one of those things where it's like, hey, it's like the printing press. Everybody said the scribe's going to go out of business. The scribes went out of business. We have a printing press. Was actually a better outcome for society and humanity.
So what comes to mind right away is what I mentioned a minute ago about the person last night talking about how quickly it's going. Your example, being a media savvy person who still can you second guess what you're seeing because of AI. I think about news stories I've watched and read. I like to watch 60 Minutes. It's totally old school, and there's controversy around 60 Minutes, but they do have really good stories. And what I recall in reading things is that people involved in developing AI in some of the first companies that were creating it and encouraging it, they're seeing the dangers in AI and how quickly it can get ahead of us and raising the alarm that we're not doing enough yet to understand AI and to put some parameters around it. So I think overall, I think that it's something that needs to be addressed in a way that will protect people, will protect the environment, will protect democracy, free speech, all of those things. And I feel like we're a little bit behind already.
One of the arguments is that it's very inefficient and very detrimental to emerging technologies and businesses to regulate before the technology comes out. It's kind of like regulating the internet before we actually knew what the internet was. It's regulating how I think people did with green energy, solar panels and stuff in the state of Ohio before the farmers were even had the ability to put the solar panels onto their fields or put up windmills. Do you think that regulation and overregulation early could destroy the business and could put America's AI or technology industry behind places like China or other places that are embracing it a little bit more?
I don't think that we're early in AI. I think that we are about at a place where we have to start looking at these things very seriously. I'll get to your question in just a second, but I think what would be really helpful, first of all, is get a handle on what is going on with AI currently. And if I were in a position, I'd definitely be interested in doing some congressional hearings on some transparency on what is actually going on in AI right now. How's it being used in the public sector? How's it being used in the private sector? You mentioned automation already in manufacturing. How it's being used in social media and other ways that are obviously now we see detrimental to our youth and to young people, and how they're being deceived and how their psychological well-being and their mental health is being impacted. So definitely we need more information on AI overall. And I would argue that we're a little bit behind. It's not really early in the process. And on that similar note, the new president has been there now for about a year. And apparently the White House released an AI policy blueprint that they want to give to Congress, which is part of the problem and part of why I'm talking to you today, because things should not be rubber stamped just coming from the White House. But he has created this, White House AI policy blueprint. And he even went so far as to sign an executive order, I'm not sure when that was, that barred states from imposing new limits on AI companies. So we're already behind. The White House has certain things that they want to do, but before they even do that, they're telling the states, you can't regulate. You have to stop and wait for us. And we know that what's coming down from the White House and the federal government is not often for the benefit of the people. It's for the benefit of certain people who sit behind the president. But when I was looking into this, getting ready to talk to you, the Wilson Center, which is a nonpartisan think tank, you might be familiar with it, they released a strategic vision for U.S. AI leadership, supporting security, innovation, democracy, global prosperity. And they outlined 5 different areas. I was deep in the weeds with this, the last few days. And it's a lot to understand and comprehend if you're not really in the field, if you're like a consumer of the information, like I have been. But there are smart, research-based, nonpartisan think tanks that are making suggestions. And some of them keeping AI and AI-enabled technologies under human control. Human control. Why would that even be an issue? I mean, that should be a thing. Securing U.S. AI leadership and competitiveness. Retaining collaborative government oversight of the AI industry. Collaborative government oversight. Addressing societal risks posed by AI while strengthening democratic institutions, and expanding the benefits of AI globally. And each one of these 5 or 6 strategic initiatives has a whole bunch of actions that can be taken underneath it. So to me, it was very interesting, fascinating, and kind of comforting that there have been nonpartisan, for the common good minds, scholars, policy experts who have thought through a lot of this and are willing to give the government some guidance in how to do it. So I don't think, Matt, that it's too early to be doing this. I think we're a little bit behind. And I think we have to do what we can to protect the people from the technology itself, but also from, the tech bros and the billionaire class who are prepared to do whatever is best for their business and profits and don't really care that much, in my observation, about how it affects the rest of us.
I appreciate that. That was very thorough and well, honestly, pretty well researched. I'm very well. Well, actually, I'm forgetting quite a bit, but I was had a couple as of about a month ago, pretty up to speed on the Wilson Institute and that bill that David Sachs is the crypto and AI czar in the Trump administration. But one thing I'm not going to beat up AI and governance too much anymore, but this is my last question because you did talk about state by state regulations that are trying to be made, and that is part of kind of the federal government's. I don't know if it is their job, but when it comes to saying, hey, one state is going to make certain regulations for AI, and then another state is going to make certain regulations for AI, or let's just put it on any industry, it's really hard for companies to have a industry that has to navigate state by state by state regulations. And then if they can do that, it only falls onto the biggest companies that can hire the lawyers and navigate the bureaucracy and the regulations. And so does it not make sense for the federal government and Congress hopefully being involved, if they would actually do their damn jobs, to make regulations that were for the entire, and like a standard for the entire United States, especially with emerging technology or existing technology? Unless, anyway, go, yeah. The last thing is here, when we're talking about state by state regulations and rights, I think that is a fundamental conversation about what we think the United States should be. If it is state by state, then we can actually apply that to healthcare rights. Do we apply that to tech industry? Do we apply that to any other industries? So I guess what I'm asking is, state by state rights sometimes or not all the time, or should it be a law of the land that we all kind of like operate under, and then the states basically just have a different way of approaching state by state rights?
I don't know exactly how you just phrased it, but you said something like, is it state by state rights sometimes, and then the federal government sometimes? And the answer is yes, sometimes. And I think we as the United States of America struggle with that on so many issues, from the very creation of our country, our republic. So it's an ongoing thing. Even now, we won't even get into all the different ways that it's an issue. So I agree with you that an industry is going to have a very hard time navigating 50 different states' laws and regulations. I agree with you. So some type of leadership, collaborative leadership on the federal level, is exactly what we need. Unfortunately, Congress has abdicated its responsibilities, and that's part of the reason that I'm here. It's disappointing, disheartening, tragic, the abdication to the administration, and the polarization that has been created both out here in the country and in the community, that there doesn't seem to be initiative, resources, desire to work on those kind of big issues in a bipartisan way and really look at how these things can impact people in the country, not just some corporations' bottom line. And I think that is sorely missing, and we need to get back to doing that. Giving some deference, preference, consideration for how some of these things impact people, the environment, our society, our civil society, the world. I think federal leadership is needed, Matt, and we don't have it.
We're gonna get out of the weeds of this topic and move it along. I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit because we did kind of skip a lot of the basic. What are you running on for the most part? And if you could give me your top 3 policies, we definitely know your your answer on AI right now. But what 3 policies are you running on? That's number 1. And how do you plan to enact those policies?
So I got into this race basically when the nominating petitions were due, which was February 4th. And until they were certified on the 17th, I didn't know if I really had gotten through that process. So I really had to think about why am I doing this? What's important to me, to our country, to the state, and to the district? What's important to the people who live there? What can I bring to the table from my experience and my education? So I really had to think about those things. So I'm going to get to those in a second. Those are my policy priorities that I thought of in the last however many weeks or months. And then there are urgent needs. And I think the biggest urgent need is reining in the lawless administration in efforts to save our democracy. Did you read or hear about that VDEM report that was issued just last week? The analysis of American democracy? So it's another think tank that's been following, and it has indicators and parameters of countries and how strong their democracy is, okay? They said the U.S. democracy is currently in a much faster deterioration process than any other democracy in modern times. So how far we have fallen in the last 12 months, 13, 14 months, from being a strong liberal democracy, within 1 year, our score declined by 24%. So we dropped from 20th to 51st democracies. Like, that's how fast we have fallen. And what they talk about, like, what you, how you assess the health of a democracy, the current administration undercutting institutionalized checks and balances, which is what we were just talking about, that Congress has been taken out of the game. Politicizing civil service and oversight bodies, taking a chainsaw to our federal government. That's it. Getting rid of civil servants. Oversight bodies, like how many inspectors general have been fired under the new administration? And those are individuals or bodies within departments or, well, let's just say departments who look at any wrongdoing and things that are going on. They have been let go. So oversight bodies, intimidating the judiciary. That happens on an unprecedented basis, along with attacks on the press, which the president is doing, academia, civil liberties, and dissenting voices. So what I see is that we are in an urgent situation to protect our constitutional and democratic principles because they are being severely eroded and very quickly. So that's, I think, a first very urgent situation. And the order of business is to stop the democratic principles backsliding by restoring Congress to its rightful role as a check and balance to the executive branch, so can stand up to the overreaches of the White House. That's super important. Second is the war in Iran, which when I started running, there was no war in Iran. That needs to stop. That needs to cease. Ill-conceived, ill-advised war that every day is pulling in more and more countries with more and more potential of our military service members being drawn into another forever war that the president had promised he wouldn't do. So anything I could do to rein that in and to stop it before it gets even worse. So those are two like urgent, the house is burning issues, okay? So the policy priorities for me are working for the people, for the regular working class people that I come from, that I grew up with, and where I still currently live and reside and observe the world. So doing things for regular people. That includes things like Social Security, protecting Social Security and Medicare, reinstating Medicaid and the SNAP benefits that were taken away, the enhanced ACA subsidies, things like the affordability. I'm sitting right here next to a gas station next to my office where like every week it goes up like 10%. Food prices, oil, heating, housing, all of those things are very important to me, and they come in a category of helping the regular people. I'm going to get to the other two and then we could talk about implementation. The second one is for the Constitution and the rule of law. We talked a little bit about how our Constitution, our democratic principles are eroding a little bit. Same with the rule of law. When you have an administration that doesn't follow court orders, that blatantly disregards constitutional protections and norms, that's hugely important to me. I took an oath to the Constitution twice. When I became an attorney in the state of Ohio, when I was sworn in, and when I took the oath of office as a city councilwoman. I take those things very seriously. And what I see happening in terms of the violation of our constitutional rights, most obviously with some of the ICE actions of unreasonable searches and seizures, of breaking into people's cars and their homes, lack of due process in the whole ICE debacle that's ongoing, and many others. So the Constitution and the rule of law. And then my third important policy priority is healthcare, access and affordability to healthcare. I worked in healthcare administration for 2.5 decades, and I've seen a lot change and happen, including when the Affordable Care Act was implemented, and still things that we're trying to implement from the original Affordable Care Act. So healthcare. So those are my top 3 priorities, plus 2, the house is burning issues.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. You mentioned working people, and I have to ask this because it is one of the questions that has been going around the internet now about your candidacy is using union printed material. Can you tell me if you are using? And you said you're a union. You come from a union household. People are talking about your union printed or non-union printed material. Can you just touch on that? And then a question I saw again, people emailing me, and there's one in the chat about they said that you said next time you'll do it on union printing, but it didn't seem to come from union printers again. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I absolutely believe and support unions. And at the same time, I am 6 weeks into a campaign and creating my own materials on Canva and turning them around event to event. So I am in discussions with union printers for my big mailing, my big materials, like the ones that you hand out at events and that you drop off in coffee shops and stuff like that. So that's my union printing. The stuff I'm doing in the short term is trying to just get some stuff out there. And I've reached out to union printers, and sometimes the turnaround time hasn't worked for my immediate needs. And I just want to share something with you. I'm doing my best under the circumstances. I totally support unions, and part of the reason I had good health care and dental care and was able to go to college was union. And the amounts I'm doing right now are really quite small batches. So I'm doing what I can.
And honestly, I'm gonna jump in here, and I don't usually do this in these conversations. I try to leave these up to the voters and not give my opinions, but I'm gonna defend you here because I did the same thing. Is that I went to every Dem club I would go to. I needed a 50 of this, 100 of this, 20 of this, and I would go up to my either library. Actually, I went to the library all the time, and I printed those out. And two times when I was there, they said, "Why didn't you print this as a union?" And I said, "Because I went to my library and I put 25 cents in the machine and spit out a couple more because I needed extra pieces." If you're going union, or if you're, I understand for your signs and your handed out material, your mailers, those should be union printer. If you're running as a Democrat, those would be very scrutinized as well. But if there's actual short term, like, hey, I'm going to hand out 20 pieces at this Dem Club event. Oh, I printed 50. I have 15 left. I need 17 more for this event. I totally understand this. I just stopped at the store on my way to the event and picked that up.
Yeah,
With that
thanks.
said, and because it's something I've done because of the way I ran is I was like, hey, this came up and I had to talk about my opponent in this way. I got the information, I put it in Canva. I just stopped at the store on the way up there and I made some prints when I was going there. It didn't have time for union. However, I would say that even though that is something I would defend, I would absolutely hope that the bug is on your yard signs and your pamphlets and your mailers and your door hangers that are going out there. And I hope that is a okay answer for the people that are watching this, because it is something that is a reality when it comes to going to club and handing out material when it's like do you really want to print 2,000 of of something that you hand out at the clubs that could change or you're not going to use? That's just a waste of campaign funds. Let me continue on here, but I did have to jump in there because I did
Yeah,
understand that dilemma. Um, do you live in the district?
I do not.
Okay. Does anybody who's running live in the district?
From my understanding, it's my understanding, things change. I don't think so. I think all
Okay.
three of us live in Cuyahoga County. And I'll speak for myself. I'm sitting here in my office, which is in Lake County, and I'm about a mile outside of the Lake County line, which is, the northwest corner of the district.
Right. Right. Was your office in the district prior to redistricting?
Yes. You
What
said
was?
office, though, Matt. You said office.
Yeah,
My
that's what I was
office
asking.
is in the district. My
Oh,
home is
okay.
in Cuyahoga County.
Oh, okay. Was your home in the district prior to redistricting?
Not the most recent redistricting, no.
I mean, not this one, but I mean the last districts, the old Ohio-14.
No, I went to do some research because I recall voting with Lake County and Ashtabula County. And that might have been the 19th district. This is really getting in the weeds, Matt. Like, this is 20 years ago when the Ohio population started to decrease. So the 14th district, as it is, where I live, was never in the 14th district.
Okay. And again, this is not what I'm going to do is defend these different things, but I am going to give my perspective here because I do have an opinion about this. When it came to this thing that people call carpetbagging, right? It's I think that a lot of people are being a little bit unfair when it comes to the 2, 3, or 4 times these districts in Ohio have been redistricted over the past decade because of the Columbus legislature or the Supreme Court debacles or our crappy Secretary of State and all these different things. So people are coming into these races and not really, either the line moved or this moved and everybody's saying, oh, you're not running in your district. When it came to carpetbagging, they really didn't want people coming from complete other places, other states, which you can do, from the south to the north, from the complete east to the west. But right now we're talking about like literal streets and blocks that have been moved for these districts, not just once, not just once when it came to census or redistricting, not just twice. I personally ran in 4 different district configurations when I ran for Congress in 2022 because they didn't know how to draw their maps. First time I was in a primary with Amelia Sykes, then it moved. Then I was campaigning in Lorain. That's how I know people from Lorain. And then I had to transfer all my ballots from Akron all the way to Cleveland to run in the last Ohio 7 that was in 2022, 2024, but it changed in 2026. So I just want to give people a little bit of context that I think that we should have a little bit of grace when it comes to people running in a congressional district or a state house or state senate district when we're talking about, a couple blocks, a couple miles. We're not talking about somebody from Toledo running in Ashtabula.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, my 2 cents that nobody asked for during this, but that's my personal opinion. But there's a legality here, though, that you will have to move into the district. Are you prepared to do so?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I'm not sure about the legality of it. Is that a requirement, Matt?
For Congress, yes. If you get elected, you do have to live in the district.
Yeah, no problem. It's down the street, literally.
So then the natural question is, even though I think people need a little bit of grace with this, people running in and out of a district that's only divided by, a couple blocks, a mile, a town, or half a town even, people are going to look at this and go, what do you know about Ohio-14? Ohio-14 is big. It's rural. David Joyce has been there. He lives there. Why are you the best person to represent that, and why over David Joyce and over your competitors?
So you're right. The district is huge. It is probably an hour and a half drive from end to end. If you look at it just as like a rectangle of sorts in the far northeast to mid-east of the state, it's huge. There are 785,000 or so people in the district, and it's an hour and a half corner to corner, corner to corner. So it's huge. And to your point about David Joyce lives also, I think, about a mile within the district. So he's just about as far removed from the far corners of the district as I am or the other 2 Democratic candidates. But to your point that he's been serving in that area for a while, of course he's going to know more than I know. But what I want to tell you is that part of the reason that I'm running in this district is that I spend a lot of time in the district. I worked and even lived in this district for a while. And a couple of years ago, some people encouraged me to run, and they live in this district. And a lot of my community, a lot of my supporters, my base of support are in this district. So it felt natural because it is so close. How can I know? Someone coming in cannot know what everything is like 90 minutes away from one corner or to the other corner. The best that I can do and anyone can do is to learn about the district as much as they can and to meet people and to get out in the district. So ever since I made this decision, I've been researching the heck out of it, demographics, maps. I printed out a map because it is a new map again to see which cities are in, which ones are out, talking to people. So I'm getting out as much as I can to talk to people in the different areas, especially moving forward because we're just getting into the heat of the campaign, and then going to the district. So as you know, you might not know, but all of us were in Portage County last weekend, maybe a week or so ago. We have things coming up in Trumbull and Ashtabula, Mahoning. So getting out there, I think, is very important. What was the second part of your question, Matt?
I think it was just how are you going to represent the district, and how are they going to perceive you representing the district?
And why am I think, the best candidate? So specifically, and I thought about this too, there are 4 reasons. Being a woman, being an attorney, a former legislator when I was in Euclid City Council, and working in healthcare. I also think that I have a nature and a temperament that I think is really important what I'm trying to do, and what I say, on my website, is listen, learn, and find common ground. That's who I am. That's my nature. That's what I want to do. I think that's very important. Back to the woman piece, I think having the perspective of a woman and the experience of girls and women overall, I think would be beneficial. And specifically because of the attacks on voting rights that will affect disproportionately women, the attack on women's health care, the attacks on women's reproductive rights, and also kind of the tolerance, or at least lack of urgency in issues of sexual exploitation of women and girls, as is exemplified by the reluctance to release and deal with the Epstein files and what all those women and girls went through. So I think being a woman is super important at this time. Being an attorney, I think, is helpful. I know Bill O'Neill is a lawyer and Dave Joyce is also. So they have the same background. So it's not that I'm different than that, but I think it really helps to understand laws, legislation, right? How it's made, how it undergirds our whole society. So I think that's important. Being on Euclid City Council, I did one 4-year term on City Council during COVID. So it was really challenging in a lot of ways, and a lot of things going on that don't usually go on. A lot of federal related legislation also that affected us. But what I think is important about that experience is developing legislation, understanding that you have to work with people, sometimes give up a little bit of what you want so that someone else can get a little bit of what they want, the oversight of the executive branch, the experience with that, and really appreciating, how difficult it is to budget. So legislature, that's very important. And the fourth one is healthcare. Having healthcare administration experience in this environment, I think really does give me a little bit of a deeper insight than maybe some of the other candidates. So that's,
Do you think there? Go ahead.
Matt, I wanted to say related to Dave Joyce. Maybe, I think 7 or 8 terms now. Maybe it's just too much of a comfort and a complacency for both having the role. I hear he doesn't get out into the community very often and doesn't necessarily engage a lot with the voters. I think there's a comfort level when you're there for that long. And maybe there's not an urgency because you just assume you're going to win again. So coming in with new ideas and new energy, from my perspective, and really standing up to the administration and standing up for Congress's role.
Do you think there's too many lawyers in Congress? Out of the 535, there's 180 lawyers. Do we really need another one?
I'm so glad you looked that up because I was thinking about that today too. I can't really speak for the rest of them. What I could say is that I'm quite disappointed in Congress overall and in Republicans in Congress in particular, just because of their abdication of their constitutional role. So I can't speak to whether too many or not too many lawyers. What I can say is that I found the education and the experience to be very beneficial to understanding how things work in this country. And I didn't work very much as an actual lawyer. I did healthcare administration, where I developed programs and brought new things into healthcare and expanded services. So I get your point. There are a lot of attorneys in healthcare, but I know that it was beneficial to me.
Yeah, no, I always think about that. It's like we have a lot of lawyers, and then we go, I wonder why these laws are so confusing. We have 180 lawyers sitting on a table working out the minutia of lawyer speak. So really quick, the last thing about your district, there's two questions here, and we are almost at an hour, so we do have to play like hot potato with some of these questions from now on. But the I think I just lost my train of thought. No, I did not. It's a red district. I firmly believe Ohio is a purple state. It has always been a purple state. It always will be. There are little specks of blue and there's little specks of red, but for the most part, Ohioans are kind of a unique. It's like the Great Lake. Everybody calls the Midwest. It's Great Lakes, and I would put it together with, say, Pittsburgh, Toledo, Chicago, Detroit. It's a different breed of people, in my opinion. We're just like, hey, we're going to do our thing. You leave us alone. And once you start getting too polarizing, we just kind of like back out. And that's why we have like 60% of Ohio or even more are registered independents or some consider themselves moderate.
Right.
First of all, so the questions I have of this is three. And remember, we're going to have to start playing hot potato. Number one is, how do you classify yourself? Are you a liberal, progressive, conservative? Two is, how are you going to, based off of how you classify yourself, how are you going to get to the moderates, the purple people in Ohio's 14th? And then the other one is, what do you think a Democrat is?
So I would consider myself center left. I don't remember the second question.
How are you going to get to the purple people of Ohio 14th?
Okay. So when I decided to do this and when I thought about what I'm doing and why, and you'll see this in some of my posts, I guess, is that I'm tired of sorting people into two categories when most of us are in the massive middle. And I believe that that's true. I believe that some of us are center left, some of us are further left, some of us are center right, some of us are further right. And the two extremes on either side are relatively small compared to all of us in the massive middle. So I think we're actually starting closer together than all of us think. So how can I reach the purple people? Is by acknowledging that we're all, I believe, closer together than we are apart. Talking respectfully to people. And I honestly believe that there is wisdom in everyone's perspective. I may not always agree with it, but generally there is wisdom and sincerity in people's beliefs. And that's how I approach people. Third, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have an idea of a ground game to work out to get to these people? I mean, again, Ohio 14th is big. It's going to take a massive amount of people or mailers or money or TV ads to reach them. Do you have that in mind?
Yes. And my first challenge is the Democratic primary on May 5th. So that's where I'm spending my most of my thought energy to try to get to the next stage. And then after that, it is, I think, a ground game, a visibility game, and meeting people who can then talk about how they met you and what their impression was of you and kind of make bigger and bigger ripples.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is a Democrat? Okay, I have to tell you a quick story. So in 2016, I was working in the arts and medicine at Cleveland Clinic, and I was invited to speak at the Art Speak at the Republican National Convention. So they had something at the Rock Hall. I spoke there as part of the RNC, so I was able to go into the RNC during one of the days of their convention. And then I was able to get a ticket to the DNC. I don't remember what the difference was, how many months, which was in Philadelphia at the time. And to me, what I found beautiful at the DNC, and I still get goosebumps thinking about it, is I saw all of America at the DNC. All shades of people, all types of clothing, all types of styles, different headdresses, different hats. It was all people, different ages, different colors of hair. It was a beautiful image of what we are as a country. And it wasn't that at the RNC. So what does it mean to be a Democrat? It means to be welcoming, inclusive, fighting for human rights, civil rights, freedoms, and for the common good.
Thank you for that. Moving on with our hot potato a little bit. Let's go back to. I want to go back to your healthcare. You said you moved in healthcare, and you said that you want to. And part of your policy is access to healthcare. Why? I don't want to ask it that way, actually. I wrote something the other day, and I think that people should be running on healthcare for all. What is your idea of healthcare for all? And can you tell me about a little bit more about your healthcare ideas?
Okay. I think healthcare is a human right. And I think in the United States of America, we are hung up on a lot of things that are keeping us from getting there. So also in researching and preparing for our conversation today, I kind of assumed that healthcare for all meant a nationalized system, but it's not always. We can have healthcare for all with a system that includes private health insurance, government insurance, and government funded healthcare. There are better ways to do it. I haven't found it yet, but there are ways to do it. So healthcare is a human right. There are things in our country keeping us from doing that, and there are different ways to do it. So when I was doing my research into the district, and it might be old information because it was redistricted, that it was like close to 90% of people in the district have health insurance, private employer or government or ACA, Affordable Care. So I was like, oh, wow, only 10% don't have it. And then I was like, wait a second, 10%, that's a lot of people who don't have health insurance. So we have work to do to cover those 10% in this district and the 10% in the whole country who do not have anything. So getting there is going to be the challenge. So I have 3 ideas. I think we should lower the Medicare start age below 65 so that people younger can access Medicare. I think then we also have to figure out how to cover more people under Medicaid, so the 2 government programs. And then the ideas of the Affordable Care Act, I think were good ones to try to get people into the insurance marketplace. So I think we have to come at it from all 3 different ways and then have earnest, sincere, bipartisan, common good conversations to figure it out already, because it's embarrassing, it's immoral, and people are living and dying on our lack of ability to cover Americans for health care.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I'm going to do a complete 180 and go and continue on with some of these. What do you think of insider stock trading in Congress?
I have my notes on that too, but I'm not going to be able to find them in time. So insider trading within corporations is not allowed. Martha Stewart went to jail because of insider trading and lying about it. Basically, insider trading is using information that's not public to buy and sell stocks. Same in Congress. They have access to information that is not public. They absolutely should not be sharing that information with anyone who can use that information, non-public information, to make those kind of decisions. And they absolutely should not be doing it themselves. I don't know why it's so hard to get Congress, who are supposed to be some of our best citizens, to think that cheating in that way is okay. It's not, and it shouldn't be allowed. And there are things that can be done to make it harder for Congress people to do that, to do insider trading. And then you have to have resources to find it out. Like just last week or whenever it was that Trump said there's going to be a 5-day delay in Iran or whatever. And then some people made a lot of money before the rest of us knew that Trump was going to do that, because they knew that there was going to be a pause in funding and in fighting, and the price of oil was going to change. I mean, that is so corrupt and wrong. It's obviously corrupt and wrong. So we need people to look into those things. So you could look at dates and times when people made trades, when they might have found out the information.
So what do you think that well, Congress regulates themselves for the most part. And I'm not going to say how to get it done because Congress will have to pass, a law to regulate themselves. There are proposals out there. I think they're mostly dog and pony shows of virtue signaling bills, to be honest with you. But do you think that would you support banning stock trading for congressmen, their spouses,
Oh, yeah.
and their kids?
First of all, they should not be telling their spouses and their kids anything that's non-public. That's the problem.
Husbands and wives talk. I mean, they talk like, "Hey, honey, what are you doing today?" "Oh, hey, you know what? I was just passing a bill about, this, that, the AI thing." "Oh, really? Okay." They didn't tell you to make a trade, but spouses talk.
Lawyers are not supposed to talk about their cases. Doctors are not supposed to talk about their patients. They do not have to talk about things like that. So it's wrong to do it.
Would you ban it?
Ban it from spouses
Ban
and
ban stock trading for congressmen, their spouses, and their kids.
I don't have enough information, but it sounds like a reasonable thing to implement.
All right. Moving over, let me see here. We talked about we did pretty good on this list of different things, inadvertently talking about a lot of these different questions that we had by just having a conversation. So I am gonna have to jump around so we can cover some of these things. You did mention Donald Trump, and you mentioned that his administration. You mentioned the trade the other day that was traded right before his truth or his announcement of peace talks with Iran. Somebody placed about a $1.5 billion bet on the stock market 5 minutes before that came out. The best timed, again, one of the best timed trades ever. So my question is, would you, if the articles of impeachment came across your desk as a congresswoman, would you sign an impeachment order on Donald Trump?
I would look at the facts and the circumstances brought in front of me. And there seems to be a lot of evidence that things that he and his administration have done are illegal, immoral, unconstitutional.
So, summary, you would look at it, but if there was a good argument made, you would sign it.
Yes.
Do you think that and I also heard and do you think that there is an argument for impeachment already from his administration?
Yes.
Do you think that, and would you support, once you sign and it goes to the Senate, would you support removal from office?
Yes, but I have to qualify it because I am an attorney, and you have to look at the facts and the circumstances that are in front of you. You have to look at the facts and the law. And I believe that there are enough facts that would make that a reasonable decision. Yes.
We spoke about foreign policy quite a bit. Thank you for that answer, by the way. But just moving on, we've talked about foreign policy, and I'm just going to give you the different foreign wars that were involved in some way abroad, and maybe military actions that we're involved in. And I want your opinion really quick. What is your opinion on our involvement with Russia and Ukraine?
We should be supporting Ukraine.
Full stop.
Yep.
Boots on the ground?
No.
So money and arms?
Yes. And any other type of support we can give them, yes.
And what's other type of support?
I guess intelligence, logistics, cooperating with allies, whatever else.
Okay. What about Israel-Gaza? What is your opinion about Israel-Gaza and our support there?
I think Israel has a right to exist. It has a right to defend itself. And they went, in my opinion, entirely too far in Gaza in achieving the aims that were necessary to protect themselves. And what has been done to the Palestinian people in Gaza is abhorrent, and it will go down in history as a terrible human rights violation.
Would you call it a genocide?
You know, I did go look up that definition, and it seems to qualify on a lot of the definitions. Yes. But I really would have to look at, the 5 elements, just like, in law, there are elements of, a crime or a, action. And it looks like quite a few of them, I believe, do meet that requirement.
Do you support America's involvement there of giving money, arms, and so on and so forth to Israel?
I think that we should have put more conditions and restrictions and limitations on the support that we gave to Israel to ensure the human rights of the Palestinians.
Moving over to Iran, do you support the joint military activities with the United States and Israel against Iran?
I don't. I think that was done too quickly without consultation with the rest of our allies in the world, without consultation with Congress or with the American people. I do not support it.
Okay, so what can you square all 3 of those conflicts of like some kind of like, I guess, ethos, philosophy that you have of that it's okay to give money and arms to Ukraine. It's okay to give money and arms to Israel, but with restrictions, and it's not okay to use military force against Iran. Like, where's like I guess the doctrine again, if you would, the Maria doctrine.
Yeah, I can't go quite so far to have the Maria doctrine. What I can tell you is that our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost a lot of lives, treasure, and we're still losing people to suicide from those 2 wars. And ultimately, it should have been better thought out, better planned exit strategies, etc. So, in my view, our military action against Iran is on par with those type of poorly started, poorly executed actions in Iran or in Iraq and Afghanistan. And there's so much at stake in terms of our military losing lives, and lives most importantly. I looked into the Iran nuclear deal from 2015. That took years to create. It took a lot of players to participate in, and it achieved a lot of the goals that we had wanted. And Trump pulled out of that a few years later, and we've been struggling to figure out how to deal with Iran since then. So there was a way for diplomacy, for dialogue, for other economic and moral and regional pressure that did not have to lead to war.
Not pertaining to the military actions within the countries, but one of the criticisms that the American people have is, and we talked about, and I'm going to wrap all this together, is we talked about healthcare, we talked about these different things that we want to support, we talked about AI, we talked about, but we haven't, and I never hear anybody talk about our debt or our deficit. The American people, one of the biggest talking points about, like, say, giving arms and money to Ukraine or Israel, it's saying like, hey, we just crossed $39 trillion in debt. We have a $1.7 to $2.2 trillion deficit that Congress keeps passing budgets that is putting us deeper and deeper in debt. The average American person right now owes 110,000, I think actually 120 now, $120,000 per person to pay our debt, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. The Congress is supposed to be the power of the purse. What do you think of those criticisms? Do you think they're right? And how do you control how would you control the deficit, or do you not want to control the deficit? I know that's a weird question to say, do you not want to? Everybody would say, of course, I want to control the deficit. But we talked about healthcare, expansion of Medicare, expansion of Medicaid. We talked about funding wars. We didn't talk about tightening the belt.
I agree with you that it is an existential problem for our country. And you mentioned the $39 trillion in debt, and half of all that debt was accumulated during President Trump's first term and this term. So any talk from him or the Republicans about being fiscally conservative or being more careful with budget and fiscal issues is not accurate. It is an existential problem for our country. So yes, I believe that it needs to be addressed. I don't know enough about monetary policy to know how much we can carry, but we absolutely have to address it. And the way to address it is to work together, again, related to people and not just the wealthy, well-connected corporations, billionaires, and the people at the top making the money, making the profits, and not paying their fair share, and the rest of us are saddled with a $39 trillion debt. It's not sustainable, Matt. I don't have the answer how to fix it, but I believe it is a priority.
Okay, understood. I will push back a little bit and say that I do not believe that it is half of the debt is from the first and second Trump administration. I would say that it's probably around 20%. It's still a large percentage, but I do not think it's half. But we can have people watch this and fact check on their own to determine that. Let's see here. Moving over and I think this is going to be one of the last questions I'm going to ask you, and then we can round it up with some closing thoughts from you. But we're talking about money. We talked about Congress. We talked about insider stock trading. We talked about funding wars. We talked about our debt and our deficit. Now I want to talk about money in Congress. What do you think about accepting money from super PACs? What do you think of super PACs and Citizen United, and specifically AIPAC?
I think that the current campaign finance system is horribly wrong. It is skewed for the wealthy and the special interests. It corrupts our politics. It corrupts people. I think Citizens United should be overturned. However, we have to do it. If we need a constitutional amendment, if we need, Congress 2/3 sending a new law, it absolutely corrupts. The amount of money that is being spent on political races on both sides of the aisle, I don't even have a strong word for it right now because I'm a little bit tired. But there's no way that is good for our democracy, because little people do not have the same resources and access to clout that the super PACs with dark money coming in from everywhere and God knows where is buying elections. It is wrong. I would avoid taking PAC money for as long as I possibly can. And I know that it's a reality. So I'm not going to sit here right now, 6 weeks into my campaign, and say I'm never going to take PAC money when, if there's an organization or a, PAC or something that I actually believe in, I would have to consider it. And you have to win in order to get into Congress. So I think it's terrible. I think it's too much. I think Citizens United should be overturned, and it's a reality. I would not take AIPAC money.
And look, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'll say what I think it is. I think it's bullshit. But I think a lot of people don't realize how much money is in politics. And just for the listeners and the watchers here, the amount of money in a presidential election year is more money than the entire revenue of the MLB, that's Major League Baseball, and the NBA combined. And I'm not talking about how much the teams are worth. I'm talking about every ticket, every hot dog, every beer, every contract, every salary. There's more money in a presidential year politics than both of those teams. And then we're talking about all 30 teams in baseball or all of the NFL. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars a year. I think it's upward around $30 billion for a presidential year is spent in politics in that year. It is a huge business, and a lot of it's coming from PACs. It's coming from a lot of different dark money groups. That is, it's a real big issue. So when people say like, oh yeah, well, money in politics, it has now turned into one of the biggest industries in the United States, and it's bigger than the football, the baseball, and the basketball that you watch. Last question before we close it out is, and I've been asking people to end with this because I think that we always go very negative with politics. Politics is always what can we do better, or what's wrong, and or what's broken, or what can we fix it. But sometimes we just got to say, like, what are we proud of? What are you proud of in the United States? What are you proud of that you see day to day? I know you mentioned a little bit at the DNC and the RNC, or just seeing like diversity and how that inspires you. But what are you proud of the United States?
So I just got goosebumps, and I'm tearing up about what am I proud of the United States. My family and many immigrants left, I'll speak to my family, communist authoritarian regimes to come to the promise and freedom of the United States of America, where everyone was treated equally under the law, where if you came and you worked hard and you followed the rules, no one would come knocking on your door to take you out and take you to some jail, although that's happening now. You're allowed to worship how you please. You're allowed to believe which you please. You're allowed to speak your mind. That's what I'm proud of America most of the time. Right now, we don't have quite all of it, but we're still hanging on to it. It really is, and it has been, at least in the 20th century, and even probably before, really a beacon of freedom and democracy for the whole world. Like the shining city on a hill, the place that people wanted to come, the place where immigrants and other people wanted to build a life, of freedom and innovation and opportunity. I'm so proud of our country for that possibility and for what it stood for. I also believe in the American people. I think American people are generally good-hearted, earnest, sincere, taking care of their families and their communities. Like, the American people are good, and we're all very similar. And we've been driven apart by all kinds of things, but I still have a fundamental belief in the goodness and the generosity of the American people. I'm proud to be an American. I'm still proud to be an American.
Love that. Love that. Maria, thank you for coming on. How would you like to end this? And please take a couple minutes and talk to your potential constituents directly.
Am I still on, Matt?
Yes. Please take a couple minutes to talk to your constituents directly, if you like.
Yeah. I, in my lifetime, have witnessed a decline in our civility, ability to talk to each other, to be open-minded and fair with each other, to give each other the benefit of the doubt, to realize and appreciate that we're all in this together, that we are in the massive middle, more or less, and that we have been pulled apart by forces and factors that want us to be apart, not necessarily to work together, for a lot of reasons. And we can't change this overnight. But what I want to do is try to start to change the conversation, to listen, learn, and find common ground. And it's going to take Maria Jukic in the 14th in Ohio, and it's going to take someone else somewhere else, and more people who have this mindset, which is put all the junk away that's dividing us and try to remember what we have in common, what our common democratic values are, and what can we do to move that forward. So that's what I want to do. And it'll start with how I interact with you and with other people day to day, and how I interact with people once I get to DC, and the openness and the generosity of spirit. So I can start doing that. I'm trying to think what else. Just that was the final thing, right?
That's the final thing.
Yeah, just that change has to start somewhere. We're more alike than we are different. And that if we all work together for the common good for our country, we could solve a lot of these problems. I really believe that we could.
Agreed. And if you want to check out Maria's website, please check out Maria's website at the bottom. Your website is mariajukic4congress.com.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Excellent. And you can donate, you can volunteer, you can look at your policies or her policies there. And please feel free to reach out. Maria, thank you very much for taking the time to come on and chat.
Thanks, Matt. Bye, everyone.